Welcome to our annual harvest celebration, Victor announced, his voice carrying across the decorated barn at River's Edge Vineyard. His tailored suit contrasted sharply with the rustic setting, emphasizing the disconnect between image and reality that defined our family. Today marks an exciting new chapter in our family's legacy. We're thrilled to announce that Natalie, fresh from completing her MBA, will be taking over as CEO. The crowd burst into applause while I sat frozen, my wine glass halfway to my lips. My phone vibrated in my pocket, notifications flooding in from our family WhatsApp group, where relatives were sending congratulatory messages and heart emojis. Just 3 hours earlier, I'd received a cryptic message from my father: "Big announcement tonight. The vineyard's future is secure, thanks to your contribution." I scanned the room, catching Ethan the accountant's uncomfortable expression. He quickly looked away, busying himself with his phone. The vineyard's Instagram account was already live-streaming the announcement, comments pouring in from wine enthusiasts and industry connections I'd helped cultivate over years of actual work among the vines. My fingers trembled slightly as I raised my glass with the others, the expensive Cabernet, saved from being lost to foreclosure by my investment, suddenly tasting like vinegar on my tongue. 6 months ago, I'd transferred my entire life savings to save this vineyard from foreclosure. My medical device startup had finally turned a corner after years of grueling work and student loan payments. Now I watched my younger sister step forward, radiant in her designer dress, having never worked a day in the fields. My name is Olivia, and I'm 35 years old. I built my medical device engineering firm from scratch, growing it into a successful business without ever asking my parents for help. The memory of that desperate late-night video call from my father still haunted me. "Olivia, sweetheart," he'd said, his face filling my phone screen at 2 a.m., eyes red-rimmed. "The bank, they're taking everything. 3 generations of winemaking, gone." Mom had appeared beside him, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "We wouldn't ask if we had anywhere else to turn," Eleanor had whispered, her voice breaking. "You've always been our rock." Meanwhile, Natalie was getting her MBA paid for by our parents, posting glamorous selfies from business school mixers while I was working 60-hour weeks, developing life-saving medical technology and learning the real meaning of success. "What about the expansion plans?" I'd asked, thinking of my company's upcoming opportunities. We were planning to open a European office, something I'd dreamed about for years. "Family comes first," Dad had insisted. "We trust each other. When this is over, you'll have a permanent place in the business. I promise." That's why when they called me crying about the bank's foreclosure notice 6 months ago, I transferred $850,000, my entire life savings, without hesitation. I even postponed my company's international expansion, dreams I'd nurtured for years sacrificed on the altar of family loyalty. With her business education and fresh perspective, my father continued now, the overhead lights gleaming off his silver hair. "Natalie will lead River's Edge into a new era of innovation and growth. She has the perfect combination of formal education and understanding of our family's legacy." I watched Natalie bask in the congratulations, her new highlights catching the light as she flipped her hair for the photographer from Wine Country magazine. The same sister who'd spent her college years posting vineyard photo shoots rather than learning about soil composition or fermentation techniques. The same sister who couldn't tell our Cabernet from our Merlot in a blind tasting last Christmas. My phone buzzed again. A private message from Natalie in our sisters-only chat: "Can't wait to show you my ideas for rebranding. You'll still handle the boring technical stuff, right?" My mother touched my arm gently, her French manicure a stark contrast against my practical sleeve. The diamonds on her wrist, purchased last month according to her Instagram post, caught the light as she leaned in. "Olivia, honey, I hope you understand, Eleanor whispered, her perfume overwhelming. Natalie's degree makes her the natural choice to handle the business side. You've always been more technical. I cut her off with a warm smile that didn't reach my eyes. The family WhatsApp group was still buzzing with congratulations, notifications lighting up my phone screen every few seconds. Of course, Mom. Natalie will do great. I raised my glass in a toast, keeping my voice steady despite the ice forming in my chest. To the new CEO of River's Edge. The words felt like shards of glass in my throat. Across the room, Dad was already pulling Natalie toward a group of investors, his arm proudly around her shoulders. My sister's laughter carried across the barn, musical and practiced. Her Instagram story would be perfect tomorrow, the golden daughter ascending to her rightful place. Excusing myself, I stepped outside into the cool evening air and pulled out my phone. The vineyard lights illuminated rows of grapes I'd helped save, vines my grandfather had taught me to tend when I was barely tall enough to reach the lowest clusters. My fingers scrolled to a contact I hadn't expected to need, Vanessa Thompson, the ruthless corporate lawyer I'd met at several medical technology conferences. I need your help with a family business matter, I texted, watching the 3 dots appear almost immediately. Are you free to meet tomorrow? Her response came quickly, 10 a.m. at my office. Bring any documentation you have. Nothing in writing, I assume? I gazed back at the celebration through the window. Through the glass, I watched my father raise a special bottle, the limited reserve my grandfather had taught me to make before he passed. Natalie was holding it incorrectly, fingers smudging the label for her photo op. You're right, I texted back to Vanessa. Nothing in writing. Just family promises. 3 more notifications from the family chat pinged in succession. Dad, celebrating our brilliant CEO. The future of River's Edge is secure. Mom, so proud of our graduate. MBA paying off already. Aunt Linda, congratulations. When is Olivia getting her turn in the spotlight? I silenced my phone and walked toward my car, the sounds of celebration fading behind me. At the lawyer's office the next morning, Vanessa's office overlooked downtown Dallas, the morning sun glinting off the steel and glass buildings. She sat across from me, reviewing the bank statements showing my $850,000 transfer to River's Edge Vineyard's account on her tablet. The encrypted files Ethan had quietly sent me last night were open on a second screen, spreadsheets that told their own damning story. Let me get this straight, she said, looking up from the documents, her sharp eyes narrowing. You transferred your entire life savings without any written agreement? Not even a promissory note? While postponing your company's European expansion? They're my family, I replied, the words tasting bitter now. I pulled up the WhatsApp conversation from that desperate night, the string of crying emojis, the voice messages filled with tears, the promises typed in all caps. When they called about the foreclosure notice, all I could think about was saving our legacy. 3 generations of wine-making about to be lost because they'd over-leveraged the property for Natalie's MBA program and a new tasting room she insisted they needed. I scrolled through my phone to show Vanessa my sister's Instagram posts from the same period, expensive MBA networking events juxtaposed with my parents' panicked messages about losing everything. Look at the timestamps, I said. They called me crying about foreclosure the same day Natalie posted from a champagne tasting with her classmates in Napa. Paid for by my parents, of course. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, tapping her stylus against her tablet. And now they've made her CEO despite your investment saving the vineyard? She paused, then added, Tell me about the day you transferred the money. What exactly did they promise? Do you have any of it recorded or in writing? I opened the secure folder on my phone labeled Family Business and pulled up screenshots of text messages, voice transcripts, and the video call history. I closed my eyes, remembering that desperate video call. Dad's face had been haggard on my screen, the low light of their kitchen casting shadows that emphasized every worry line. "Olivia, you know I wouldn't ask if there was any other way," he'd pleaded, his voice cracking. "Your investment will secure your place here. You've always understood the vines better than anyone. Once we're stable, you'll be taken care of, I swear it." Mom had appeared behind him, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "We'll make it up to you, sweetie. Family takes care of family." She'd sniffled dramatically. "You're our only hope." I opened my eyes, anger rising as I recalled how their desperation had evaporated the moment my transfer cleared. Within weeks, Mom had posted photos of their business research trip to Napa Valley, staying at exclusive Vineyard estates. "They said I'd be taken care of," I told Vanessa, my voice hardening. "That my investment would secure my place in the family business." Dad specifically mentioned my knowledge of the vineyard operations being valuable for the future. I pulled up another set of messages, this time from the family group chat 3 weeks after my transfer. My father announcing Natalie's graduation date and how exciting changes were coming to River's Edge leadership. "Did anyone witness these conversations?" Vanessa asked, taking notes on her tablet. "Yes," I said, sitting up straighter. "Their accountant, Ethan, was there when I visited to arrange the transfer. He connected to our video call from the Vineyard office. He seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation, kept suggesting we put something in writing. My parents dismissed him, saying it would insult the family trust." I pulled up a screenshot of Ethan's private message to me from that day. "For what it's worth, I think you should get this in writing. Family business can get complicated." Vanessa's eyes gleamed as she studied the evidence. "Ethan could be very useful. Does he still work for them?" "Yes, but he's been looking for another position. He sent me these spreadsheets last night." I handed her a flash drive. "He's not comfortable with how they've been allocating funds since my investment." Vanessa plugged in the drive and scanned the documents. "But first, we need to understand your ideal outcome. Do you want control of the vineyard?" I shook my head, my gaze drifting to the window where I could see the outline of my office building several blocks away. My medical devices had saved lives, real, measurable impact that no amount of premium wine could match. I want my investment back with interest. Let Natalie have her CEO title. I'll start my own vineyard with my money, one they'll have to compete with. I pulled up a property listing on my phone, Marshall Creek Estate, situated on the hill overlooking River's Edge. My grandfather taught me everything about winemaking before he died. I've been researching available properties for months, just in case. Vanessa smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes as she swiped through the photos of Marshall Creek's south-facing slopes. "Because I have a plan. Your parents' actions constitute verbal fraud. With Ethan's testimony and these bank records, we can build a strong case. But instead of filing immediately, we'll send a demand letter first, one that outlines exactly how their actions could be interpreted as deliberate financial manipulation." She pulled out a tablet and started typing notes. "We demand repayment of your $850,000 plus 8% annual interest within 30 days. We'll also request all financial records since your investment." She glanced at Ethan's spreadsheets again. "I suspect we'll find some interesting decisions made after they received your money." My phone vibrated with another family chat notification. Natalie had just posted a photo of herself standing beside a brand new Mercedes SUV in the Vineyard's parking lot. "New company car for the CEO. #blessed #family business." I turned the phone to show Vanessa, who raised an eyebrow. "Company car, is it?" She made another note. Interesting allocation of resources for a vineyard that was facing foreclosure 6 months ago. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders as Vanessa outlined our strategy. For months, I'd second-guessed myself, wondering if I was overreacting, if I was being selfish for wanting recognition for my sacrifice. And if they refuse? I asked, already knowing my family's capacity for denial. Then we file a lawsuit that will open their books to public scrutiny. Something tells me your sister's MBA hasn't prepared her for that kind of crisis management. Vanessa's smile tightened. The wine industry trades on reputation. How do you think your family's standing will fare when word gets out about how they treated their daughter who saved the business? As I left Vanessa's office, I felt stronger than I had in months. My phone buzzed again, another group message from Mom, family dinner this Sunday to celebrate our new CEO. Olivia, please bring that lovely cranberry sauce you made last year. I typed back a simple response, can't make it. Business commitment. Then I silenced the thread and called Ethan. The demand letter landed like a bomb at River's Edge. I was working from my condominium when Natalie called, her voice shrill with panic. Our family WhatsApp group had gone eerily silent after 3 days of non-stop celebration photos. A lawsuit? Are you insane? You're going to destroy everything our family has built, she screamed through the phone. I could hear her pacing, heels clicking rapidly on what was probably the Italian marble floor of her apartment, the one our parents paid for. Dad's having chest pains because of you. He's on medication now. I remained calm, letting her rant, watching my email as preliminary designs for my new medical device prototype came in. The irony wasn't lost on me. I created tools to monitor heart health while apparently endangering my father's. The solution is simple, Natalie, I said when she finally paused for breath. Return my investment with interest. $850,000 plus 8% over 6 months. You have an MBA, you can do the math. That money went into saving this vineyard, your heritage too. Her voice cracked with emotion that sounded rehearsed. And now you want to bankrupt us to get it back? I just took out loans for the rebranding campaign. A notification popped up on my screen, Natalie posting on Instagram even during our conversation, a somber-looking selfie with the caption "Family Heartbreak. Prayers needed during this difficult time." Besides, she continued, her voice turning sly, your press lawyer should know that verbal agreements in family businesses are complicated. You can't prove anything. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Actually, I just got off the phone with Ethan. Remember him? Your accountant? He's given a sworn statement about the day I made the transfer, about how he advised putting our agreement in writing and how Dad promised me a secured place in the business. The line went silent for a moment. Then, hold on, Dad wants to talk to you. I heard muffled conversation, Natalie's voice rising in pitch before my father came on the line. My father's voice came through, strained and angry. Olivia, what are you doing to us? After everything we've done for you. He was using his authoritative tone, the one that had worked when I was 16 and wanted to study engineering instead of hospitality management. Everything you've done for me? I cut him off, pulling up the family expenses spreadsheet Ethan had sent. Let's talk about that. While you paid for Natalie's education, her MBA, her car, her apartment, I built my own life. I worked through college on scholarship, paid off my student loans, and created life-saving medical technology. The only time I asked for anything was when you promised me a future here in exchange for saving the vineyard. My monitoring app pinged, someone was posting to our extended family group. Aunt Meredith sharing the news that poor Victor was under attack from his own daughter while trying to recover from health issues. The narrative was already being crafted. We never promised you control, Victor said, his voice rising. Natalie has the education for this. An MBA from Wharton. What did you expect? That we'd put an engineer in charge of marketing and distribution? I'm not asking for control anymore, I interrupted again, keeping my voice level despite the fury building inside me. I'm asking for my money back. Money you took knowing exactly what you planned to do with it. Money that paid for Natalie's graduation party and your new tasting room renovation. He switched tactics, his voice softening to the tone he used when convincing distributors to place larger orders. Sweetheart, be reasonable. The Vineyard doesn't have that kind of liquid capital right now. We'd have to take out another loan. Then I suggest you start talking to banks. I checked the calendar notification that had just appeared, Vanessa scheduling our follow-up meeting. You have 25 days left before I file the lawsuit. And Dad, every financial decision made since my investment will be scrutinized, including the new Mercedes Natalie's driving and that vacation you and Mom took to Tuscany last month. I could hear muffled conversation in the background. Another notification. Dad had muted himself on our call but was simultaneously messaging the family group, trying to reason with her. Keep praying. Then Mom came on the line. Olivia, please, she begged, voice trembling perfectly. Come over for dinner. We can talk about this as a family. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. We're not family right now, Mom. We're business associates in a dispute. Have your lawyer call Vanessa with your response. I kept my tone professional despite the ache in my chest. And maybe suggest Dad drink less of the reserve Cabernet if his blood pressure is a concern. I hung up, my hands shaking slightly. My phone immediately lit up with messages from relatives ranging from angry accusations to pleas for peace. Cousin Rebecca, how could you do this to family? Uncle George, your grandfather would be so disappointed. Aunt Sarah, let's all calm down and remember what's important. I silenced all notifications except for work and Vanessa's contact, then opened my laptop, starting research on available vineyard properties in the next county. I pulled up the Marshall Creek listing again, studying the soil composition reports and rainfall statistics. Soon, River's Edge would have some serious competition. My company's European expansion plans were back on track too. With my investment returned, I could move forward with opening our Paris office. I'd spent too long putting my dreams on hold for a family that saw me as nothing but a convenient solution to their financial problems. The following week brought a revelation I hadn't expected. Ethan, the accountant, sent an encrypted message requesting to meet. We agreed on a quiet cafe away from the vineyard, and he arrived clutching a tablet and external drive, glancing nervously over his shoulder before sliding into the booth. There's something you need to see, he said, his voice tense with urgency. He glanced around the nearly empty cafe before connecting the drive to his tablet. I've been reviewing the books since your investment came in. The numbers don't add up. He tapped through several password-protected folders before turning the screen toward me. Your $850,000 didn't just save the vineyard from foreclosure. It also funded a series of personal expenses that were logged as business costs. The spreadsheet showed it all in damning detail. The new Mercedes listed as a delivery vehicle, the Tuscany trip as market research, even Natalie's MBA had portions backdated as employee education expenses. Each entry was color-coded, with Ethan's notes detailing the actual versus claimed purpose. My hands tightened around my coffee cup, the ceramic suddenly feeling fragile in my grip. They used my investment for all this? Ethan nodded grimly, swiping to a new document. There's more. 2 weeks before they announced Natalie as CEO, they registered a new company, River's Edge Holdings LLC. They've been quietly transferring Vineyard assets to this new entity. He showed me the registration documents and transfer records. The original Vineyard company, the one you invested in, it's being hollowed out. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. They weren't just dismissing my contribution, they were actively working to ensure I couldn't claim anything. The vineyard I'd saved would soon be an empty shell, while the valuable assets would be safely tucked away in a new entity where I had no stake. "Look at the timing," Ethan said, pointing to the transfer dates. "The day after your money cleared, they started moving things. First the premium wine inventory, then the equipment, then the intellectual property, the recipes, the branding, everything of value." I stared at the evidence, my mind racing. No wonder they'd been so confident in their position. They thought they'd created a perfect shield, a way to keep my money while giving me nothing in return. "Your lawyer needs to see this," Ethan said, his voice dropping lower as the waitress passed our table. He handed me the encrypted drive. "But you didn't get it from me. I'm looking for a new job already. I can't be associated with this kind of financial manipulation." "Why are you helping me?" I asked, pocketing the drive. "You've worked for my family for years." Ethan's expression hardened. "Your grandfather gave me my first job when no one else would take a chance on me. He taught me about integrity in business. What your parents are doing." He shook his head. "It's not what River's Edge was supposed to be about." I reached for my phone to call Vanessa, but it buzzed first with a text from Natalie, "Family meeting tonight. Don't bring your lawyer. Last chance to fix this like family." Wine glass. I showed Ethan the message. He shook his head. "They must have figured out I was looking into the records. They've been watching access logs. They're going to try to convince you to back down or threaten me, too." My mind flashed back to similar family meetings from childhood when Natalie had gotten into trouble. Our parents had always found a way to shift the blame, to make me the unreasonable one for not protecting my sister. All those times I'd covered for her, taken responsibility, been the bigger person. I replied to Natalie, my fingers steady now. "Any discussion needs to happen with lawyers present." Natalie's response was immediate, a voice message rather than text. "Fine," she snapped, her voice tight with frustration. "But don't come crying when this gets ugly. Dad's doctor says his heart can't take much more stress. Whatever happens next is on you." A second later, she sent another message, "Check the family group by the way. Everyone knows what you're doing." I called Vanessa and sent her photos of Ethan's documents. Her sharp intake of breath told me everything I needed to know. "This is exactly what I was looking for," she said, her voice charged with professional excitement. "They've committed multiple financial improprieties. We're not just talking about a civil suit anymore. This could lead to criminal charges." "I don't want them in jail," I said quickly, surprising myself with the protective instinct that remained despite everything. My phone continued vibrating with family group notifications, a stream of concern for my father's health interspersed with thinly veiled accusations about my character. "I just want my investment back." "Then we use this as leverage," Vanessa replied, keyboard clicks audible in the background. "I'm drafting an amended demand letter now. Instead of 30 days, they have 48 hours to either return your money with interest or face an investigation that will involve the SEC. The choice is theirs." She paused. "Olivia, you should know, once I send this, they might lash out. Family disputes can get ugly. Are you prepared for that?" I glanced at my phone. Someone had posted an old photo of me and Natalie as children, with a caption about how sad it was to see sisters torn apart by greed. The irony was almost laughable. "I'm already the villain in their story," I replied. "Might as well get my money back while playing the role." After hanging up, I sat in the cafe long after Ethan left, staring at the tablet where I'd copied the damning documents. Part of me felt guilty for what this could do to my family, but another part, the part that remembered every dismissal, every time they'd favored Natalie, every sacrifice I'd made to help them, felt a grim satisfaction. My phone kept buzzing with increasingly frantic messages from my parents and sister. The family chat had evolved into a real-time crisis management session, with relatives debating my motives and mental state. I ignored them all and opened my laptop, pulling up the real estate listing I'd been eyeing, the Marshall Creek property. 200 acres of prime vineyard land just across the valley from river's edge. Perfect soil composition, excellent sun exposure, and most importantly, a clear view of my family's vineyard. I emailed the real estate agent, scheduling a virtual tour for the next morning. Then I pulled up my company's European expansion plans, reviewing the Paris office lease options. Perhaps it was time to move forward on both fronts, a new vineyard and an international office. I'd spent too long putting my dreams on hold. My phone pinged with a different notification. Ethan had sent a secured message. "They're an emergency board meeting now. Heard your name mentioned repeatedly. Be careful." The amended demand letter hit harder than a hailstorm on harvest day. I was in the middle of a virtual tour of the Marshall Creek property when my intercom buzzed. The security desk informed me that Victor Bennett was in the lobby, demanding to see me immediately. "Tell him I'm in a meeting," I replied, continuing my tour with the real estate agent's voice describing the property's aging wine cellar that needed renovation, a perfect project for my grandfather's techniques. 15 minutes later, my father burst into my condominium, security keycard in hand. He'd kept his emergency access from when he'd helped me move in 3 years ago. His face was flushed, the amended demand letter clutched in his fist like a crumpled flag of surrender. "Criminal charges," he wheezed, his designer tie loosened and face red. "Against your own family? I raised you better than this." I minimized the browser window showing Marshall Creek's south-facing slopes, keeping my expression neutral. Behind my father, my phone screen lit up with notifications, the family WhatsApp group exploding with messages, Natalie apparently live updating everyone about Dad's confrontation mission. "Did you raise me to accept being robbed?" I asked, my voice steady. "Because that's what you did. Took my $850,000 and used it for luxury cars and Italian vacations while plotting to lock me out of the business." "We never meant," he started, but I cut him off, turning my tablet to show him the evidence Ethan had provided. "Save it. I've seen the financial records, the new LLC, the asset transfers, everything. You didn't just betray me, you tried to make sure I couldn't fight back." I stood up, my voice steady. "You have 48 hours left to return my investment with interest, or Vanessa files everything with the SEC." His face went from red to pale, hands shaking as he leaned against my kitchen counter. My monitor displayed real-time notifications from the family group. "Natalie, Dad's confronting her now. Mom, praying it goes well. Everyone keeps messaging support. Uncle Robert, tell her what this stress is doing to your heart, Victor." "You'd destroy your sister's future?" my father asked, his voice suddenly small. "She just started as CEO. The publicity from this would ruin her career prospects." "Natalie's future?" I laughed bitterly, pulling up side-by-side images on my tablet, my sister's Instagram posts showing her CEO preparation spa retreats next to screenshots of my investment transfer confirmation. What about mine? I earned that money while she was posting Instagram photos from business school, money you promised would secure my place in the family business. I swiped to show him more evidence, the asset transfers, the shell company formation, all highlighted in damning detail. "You know what the most painful part is? You didn't even need to do this. I would have helped without expecting the CEO position. All I wanted was acknowledgement and respect for my contribution. We can still work something out, he pleaded, his voice softening to the tone he used when negotiating with reluctant suppliers. Maybe Natalie could share the CEO position, a co-leadership arrangement. My phone buzzed with a message from Natalie, whatever Dad's offering, don't trust him. I'm not sharing anything. They're just buying time to move more assets. I shook my head, suddenly tired of the manipulation. I don't want to share leadership with Natalie. I want my money back, every penny plus interest. Then you'll never have to worry about me competing with your precious CEO again. His eyes narrowed at the word competing. What does that mean? Just then, my laptop chimed with an incoming video call. It was the real estate agent handling Marshall Creek, perfect timing. I answered on speaker. Hi, Olivia. Great news, the owner is very interested in your offer. They love your vision for expanding the vineyard's production. When can you meet to discuss terms? I watched my father's face crumple as realization dawned. Marshall Creek wasn't just any property, it was River's Edge's main competition back when my grandfather ran things. Their wine had consistently won more awards until the owner retired and let the vines go. You wouldn't, he whispered, his complexion now ashen. Wouldn't what? Start my own vineyard? Use my expertise to compete with the business that stole from me? I pulled up a file on my tablet, my grandfather's meticulous notes on winemaking, digitized and annotated with my own research. I learned everything about winemaking from Grandpa, Dad, everything. While Natalie was studying business cases, I was studying soil samples and weather patterns. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Your father just clutched his chest. Are you trying to kill him? Call an ambulance if you still have any heart left. Your grandfather would be ashamed, my father said, trying one last emotional jab as he steadied himself against my counter. He waved away my instinctive move toward him, the medical professional in me automatically responding to someone in distress. No, he'd be proud. Proud I'm not letting you and Natalie destroy his legacy with your greed. I turned back to my laptop, professional mask firmly in place despite the turmoil inside. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a property to buy. Tick-tock on that 48 hours. He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages from Natalie. I switched from the family group to our private chat to see a voice message waiting. I played it on speaker. How dare you threaten Dad like this? Natalie's voice was shrill, the sound of her pacing audible in the background. You're just jealous of my success. Mom's crying because of you. Dad could have had a heart attack in your living room and you just sat there. Is that what you want? To inherit the vineyard after killing our parents with stress? The message continued for another 2 minutes, accusations, guilt trips, and finally, threats about what the extended family would think of me. I blocked her number and returned to the Marshall Creek listing, examining the satellite view of the property. The main house would need renovation, but the position was perfect, higher elevation than River's Edge, with better drainage for the premium grape varieties I planned to cultivate. My phone buzzed again, Vanessa this time. They're scrambling, she reported. Just got a call from their lawyer. Looks like they're trying to secure an emergency loan. I smiled. Either way, I won. Either I got my money back, or I got Marshall Creek, and River's Edge would learn what real competition felt like. My company's European division head sent an update about the Paris office. The perfect space had just become available. Another dream I could finally pursue without guilt. With 12 hours left on the deadline, my mother showed up at my office. My assistant looked uncomfortable as she escorted Eleanor in, she'd apparently told security she needed to deliver urgent medical information to me. She carried a thick manila envelope and wore the same expression she'd used whenever playing peacemaker between Natalie and me as children. Her hair was perfectly styled despite the family emergency, and she'd clearly taken time to apply full makeup before this emotional confrontation. "Your father had to be sedated," she said, sinking into the chair across from my desk. Her voice carried just enough volume to be overheard by my assistant outside the glass door. His blood pressure was through the roof. "Are you happy now?" I pressed the privacy button for my office windows, turning the glass opaque. "What's in the envelope, Mom?" She slid it across my desk, her French manicure catching the light. The same manicure she'd gotten freshly done according to her Instagram story posted 3 hours ago, with the caption "Self-care during family crisis #blessed." "The best we can do," she said, her voice breaking perfectly on cue. "We've mortgaged everything we could. There's $600,000 here. That's all the bank would give us. We can pay the rest in installments." I didn't touch the envelope. My computer screen showed my calendar. The Marshall Creek meeting was scheduled for tomorrow morning, right when the deadline expired. That wasn't the deal. $850,000 plus interest, all of it, or Vanessa files tomorrow morning. "We don't have it," she snapped, her peacemaker facade cracking. "Natalie's been calling every bank in Texas. No one will give us more without wanting to audit the books, and you know we can't allow that now." "Because of what they'd find?" I asked quietly, turning my monitor to show her the spreadsheets Ethan had provided. "Like how you used my investment to pay for Natalie's MBA instead of saving the Vineyard, or how you've been hiding assets in that new LLC." Mom's face went still, the practiced vulnerability vanishing. "How did you? I have copies of everything, Mom. Every transaction, every transfer, every fraudulent business expense. Did you really think no one would notice?" I pulled up photos from her social media: the Tuscany trip, the new kitchen renovation, Natalie's graduation party at the Four Seasons. "You documented your fraud on Instagram, for God's sake." She leaned forward, switching tactics with the skill of someone who'd been manipulating family dynamics for decades. "Think about what you're doing. If you file those papers, it won't just hurt us. The Vineyard's reputation will be ruined. All those people who depend on us for their livelihood, the workers, the distributors, their families. You'd destroy them all just to spite your sister?" My phone buzzed with a notification from the family group. Someone had posted an old photo of me at the Vineyard, helping with harvest as a teenager. "Remember when Olivia loved the family business? Before money changed her." "Don't you dare put this on me," I said, my voice hard. I gestured to the financial documents displayed on my monitor. "You and Dad chose this path the moment you decided to steal my money. You're the ones who put everyone's jobs at risk, not me." "We didn't steal," she began, but I cut her off, turning my laptop around to show her the Marshall Creek property listing. "Let me show you something." I opened the drone footage of the property, showing sweeping views of the rolling hills and strategically placed vineyard plots. "Beautiful, isn't it? Premium soil, perfect elevation, and enough acreage to double River's Edge's production capacity. The owner accepts my offer tomorrow morning unless I get my money back first." Mom's eyes widened as she recognized the property. She'd spent years referring to it as that eyesore across the valley whenever Grandpa had pointed out their superior wine ratings. "You can't," she gasped, her manicured hand clutching at her designer scarf. "That land, it would destroy us. We'd be competing directly for the same distributors, the same customers." "Then I suggest you and Natalie get creative in the next 11 hours. Sell her Mercedes, mortgage the house, call in favors. I glanced meaningfully at her diamond tennis bracelet. I don't care how you do it, but I want every penny back. She stood up shakily, adjusting her Hermes bag on her shoulder. You've changed, Olivia. You've become hard, cruel. No, Mom. I've just stopped letting you manipulate me. I stood as well, maintaining eye contact. The money or the lawsuit. Those are your only options now. As she reached the door, she turned for one final attempt. Your father wanted me to remind you that the vines you'd be competing against are the same ones your grandfather planted. His legacy. Can you really bring yourself to hurt that? Grandpa taught me that legacy isn't about the land, it's about integrity. Something you and Dad seem to have forgotten. I opened the door for her. 11 hours, Mom. The money or the lawsuit. After she left, I called Vanessa to update her. They tried to negotiate, I told her, glancing at the untouched envelope on my desk. Offered partial payment. Stay firm, she advised. From what I'm hearing, they're desperate. Their lawyer's been calling banks all day. Just then, my email pinged. A new message from the Marshall Creek realtor, owner eager to close. Can meet first thing tomorrow to sign papers. Property has multiple interested parties, but they're prioritizing your vision for revitalizing the vineyard. I smiled and wrote back confirming the meeting. Then I texted Natalie, 11 hours left. Tick-tock. Her response came immediately, a series of messages in rapid succession. You're making a huge mistake. Dad's lawyer says we can tie this up in court for years. Family is supposed to be forever. Business is temporary. Mom is crying in the bathroom. Are you satisfied? Dad says Marshall Creek's soil is depleted. Grandpa always said it was inferior. I sent back a single photo, the view from Marshall Creek's highest point, looking down over River's Edge's main vineyard. The one she'd used as backdrop for countless Instagram photoshoots. I added a simple caption, imagine the sunrise marketing photos from this vantage point. Her response was a string of angry emojis followed by, this isn't about the money anymore, is it? You just want to hurt us. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the financial projections for Marshall Creek that I'd been working on for months. With my engineering background and winemaking knowledge, I could modernize operations while maintaining traditional quality. The business plan projected breaking even within 3 years, profitability by year 5. My phone buzzed with a notification from LinkedIn. Ethan had updated his profile, listing himself as financial consultant, currently seeking new opportunities. A clear signal he was preparing for fallout. The clock was ticking, and I had them exactly where I wanted them. Either outcome would work in my favor, my money returned, or a new venture that would prove my worth beyond doubt. The family WhatsApp group had gone suspiciously quiet, no doubt they were having their own emergency meeting. My assistant knocked gently. Your car is here, Ms. Bennett. And Ms. Thompson's office called to confirm your 8 a.m. meeting tomorrow. I gathered my things, leaving the envelope untouched on my desk. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll be unavailable for the rest of the evening. Family matters. With just 2 hours until deadline, I sat in Vanessa's office, reviewing the final paperwork for both scenarios, the SEC filing and the Marshall Creek purchase agreement. The sun was setting over Dallas, painting the sky in shades of red that reminded me of our Cabernet. The wall-mounted television silently played a business news channel where, ironically, a segment about family businesses and succession planning appeared. I wondered if anywhere in those expert discussions they covered what to do when your family uses you as their personal ATM. Their lawyers called 4 times in the last hour, Vanessa said, checking her messages. The polished conference table between us was covered with documents, evidence of my family's financial manipulation on one side, my future plans on the other. They're scrambling. Someone named James Turner from First Regional Bank has been trying to reach you, too. I sat up straighter. James Turner was Natalie's college boyfriend, the one who dumped her for being too high maintenance. He now worked as a loan officer. Mom had complained for years about how that Turner boy had broken Natalie's heart, yet now they were apparently reaching out to him in desperation. My phone vibrated with a text from Ethan, emergency board meeting called at River's Edge. Natalie is crying in the bathroom. Your mother's threatening to expose something about your father if he doesn't fix this. It's chaos. The family WhatsApp group had become active again, with relatives posting supportive messages for my parents and sister. Aunt Barbara, praying for resolution that honors the family legacy. Cousin Michael, family businesses require sacrifice from everyone. Uncle Stephen had even posted a Bible verse about forgiveness. No one seemed concerned about what I had sacrificed. I called James, who answered immediately. His voice was professional but with an undercurrent of satisfaction. Ms. Bennett, I've been reviewing your family's loan application. Quite the interesting financial situation you have there. What did they tell you? I asked, putting the call on speaker so Vanessa could hear. That they need emergency capital to buy out a problematic investor. He cleared his throat. The Vineyard's records show serious irregularities. I can't approve their emergency loan request without a full audit, but there's another option. A bank looking to invest in family wineries. They'd require full transparency, but your parents would get more than just a loan. I muted the call and looked at Vanessa, who nodded thoughtfully. External oversight could work in your favor. They'd have to clean up their books. I unmuted. What kind of arrangement are we talking about, James? The investment group specializes in traditional family businesses. They provide capital in exchange for financial oversight and partial control. Your family keeps the brand and legacy, but with professional management of finances. There was a pause. I suggested this because, frankly, the books are a mess. Someone needs to bring proper governance to River's Edge. I texted my father, there's a solution, one that doesn't involve me or the SEC. Call James Turner at First Regional. You have 90 minutes. My phone immediately lit up with separate messages from both parents and Natalie. Dad, Turner? That boy who broke your sister's heart? Mom, we're not selling to outsiders. Natalie, you think some bank taking over is better than family? You're destroying Grandpa's legacy. I thought about our grandfather, about the hours he'd spent teaching me about the vines while Natalie played on her phone. His last words echoed in my mind. The grapes don't care about fancy degrees, they care about love and hard work. 1 hour left, Vanessa said quietly, organizing the SEC filing documents. What now? We wait, I replied, pulling up the Marshall Creek listing one more time. Either way, I'd be making a new start. The question was whether River's Edge would survive alongside me. With 30 minutes left, Ethan's updates became more frequent. Your father's reviewing documents with the bank. Natalie's called 3 different loan officers. Your mother's gone through half a box of tissues. I kept my phone close, watching the minutes tick by. The $850,000 wasn't just about money anymore, it was about making them face the consequences of their actions. About forcing them to recognize that I couldn't be used and discarded when convenient. A notification popped up. Natalie had deleted her celebratory CEO announcement posts from social media. Dad's LinkedIn profile no longer listed him as owner but founder. small digital adjustments that signaled a seismic shift in the family power structure. Rachel worked quietly across from me, preparing both sets of paperwork. Then my father's number appeared on my phone. "The bank wants full control of financial decisions for 5 years," he said, his voice rough, weary in a way I'd never heard before. "Plus 2 board seats. We'd be answering to strangers." In the background, I could hear my mother's muffled objections and Natalie's tearful protests. The sounds of a family empire adjusting to reality. "Better strangers than thieves," I replied coldly. 20 minutes left. "Listen carefully. If you sign with the bank, repay my investment with interest, and I'll walk away. You'll never have to worry about me competing with precious Natalie again." He was quiet for a long moment. I could picture him in the Vineyard office, the portrait of his father, my grandfather, looking down disapprovingly from behind the desk. "Your mother thinks we should call your bluff," he finally said, voice hollow. "Says you won't really file with the SEC, that you're too soft. That you love the family too much to go through with it." 15 minutes to find out, I said, glancing at Vanessa, who was poised with the SEC filing ready to submit. Tick-tock. I hung up and turned to Vanessa. "Get the SEC paperwork ready." The next 10 minutes stretched endlessly. My phone remained silent while notifications continued to ping in the family group, cryptic messages about doing what's necessary and preserving what matters most. With 5 minutes left, my phone buzzed with an email from James Turner. Subject line: Documents signed. The attached file showed my parents' signatures on the bank agreement along with a transfer confirmation for $850,000 plus interest to my account. "Looks like they chose survival over pride," Vanessa said, closing the SEC filing folder. I nodded, feeling strangely hollow despite getting exactly what I'd wanted. A second email arrived, from my father directly, containing only a photo of the original River's Edge founding document from 1952, with my grandfather's signature. No message, just the reminder of where we came from. I opened my banking app, watching as the transfer completed. My investment returned, with interest. The money that would have funded my European expansion, then almost funded Natalie's CEO lifestyle, now back in my control. My phone rang again, this time Natalie. I declined the call, but she immediately followed with a text, "You won. Are you happy now? Mom's devastated and Dad's barely speaking. Hope it was worth it." I was already pulling up the real estate agent's number. The vineyard across the valley from Marshall Creek was for sale, too. Better water rights, lower price, and no direct sightline to River's Edge. A fresh start without the constant visual reminder of what I'd left behind. 2 months later, I stood on my newly purchased property, Sunrise Valley Vineyard, with its perfect eastern exposure and rich soil. The view faced away from River's Edge, looking instead toward the rising sun, symbolic in ways that weren't lost on me. I'd used the returned $850,000 as a down payment, with investors eager to back my venture after hearing my plans and reviewing my background in both engineering and traditional winemaking. My company's Paris office had opened last week, and the European expansion was proceeding smoothly. For the first time in years, I was pursuing all my dreams simultaneously, without family obligation holding me back. Ethan had resigned from River's Edge the day after the bank took over, and I'd immediately hired him as my CFO. He approached now, tablet in hand, checking notifications as he walked up the hill. "Natalie is having a meltdown," he reported, glancing up at me. The bank rejected her proposal for a new tasting room, said something about unnecessary expenses and focusing on wine quality first. I smiled, remembering the bank's first board meeting. According to Ethan's former colleagues, they'd replaced the Mercedes with a practical truck and canceled the Italian wine tasting tours. Natalie's MBA was proving useless against actual financial oversight. They've brought in a consultant winemaker from Napa, Ethan continued, showing me the listing. Someone with 30 years of experience. Natalie's been demoted to brand ambassador. My mother still sent weekly texts about healing the family, elaborate invitations to dinners I never attended. Each message carefully crafted to place me in the role of the prodigal daughter who needed to return and apologize. I'd responded only once, when she'd mentioned Grandpa would be disappointed. Grandpa valued honesty above all else. I'm honoring that. My father hadn't spoken to me since signing the bank agreement, but last week I'd received a package that meant more than their words ever could. Grandpa's old leather-bound notebook of vineyard wisdom, filled with his handwritten notes about soil composition, weather patterns, and grape varieties. The enclosed note read simply, "This belongs with someone who understands its value. Dad." I held that notebook now, standing among my newly purchased vines. The leather cover was worn at the edges from decades of use, the pages yellow with age but filled with priceless knowledge. In 3 years, these grapes would produce their first vintage. In 5 years, I'd be competing in the market, but not directly against River's Edge as I'd originally planned. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had something better, my own legacy to build. The April sun warmed my face as I opened the notebook to my grandfather's entry about spring pruning. His meticulous diagrams showing proper cutting techniques were annotated with observations spanning decades. At the bottom of one page, in faded ink, he'd written, "Remember, the vine must be stressed to produce the best fruit, but never broken." How fitting that wisdom seemed now. I'd been stressed nearly to breaking point, but had emerged stronger. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a notification from the industry newsletter. River's Edge had won a regional award for their Cabernet Reserve, the last vintage my grandfather had overseen before passing. The article quoted brand ambassador Natalie Bennett acknowledging the traditional techniques passed down through generations. I smiled slightly, tucking the phone away. Some acknowledgement of tradition was better than none. Perhaps the bank's oversight was already having positive effects. "Ready to start planting?" Ethan asked, gesturing to the work crew waiting with the new rootstock. The grafted vines, combining traditional varieties with modern disease-resistant rootstock, represented my vision perfectly, honoring tradition while embracing innovation. In my pocket, I felt my phone vibrate again. The family group message I'd muted months ago was likely still active, still discussing poor Victor and Eleanor and their difficult daughter. But those voices seemed distant now, fading like echoes in a valley I'd left behind. I tucked Grandpa's notebook into my jacket and nodded to Ethan. The crew waited expectantly, ready to begin the work that would define the next generation of winemaking on this hillside. "Let's make some wine," I said, walking toward them with purpose, the morning sun illuminating the path ahead.